Hey everybody, this is Freddie with LeviathanScuba.com. Do you really need a backup? Well, I suppose that depends a little bit on which piece of gear we're talking about. We'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, so let's say 1,000 years ago, no, maybe 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was determined that if your regulator failed, you needed another one, or you needed a buddy really close, and buddies weren't always close enough. So they gave you a second one. Now you have a backup. I get it. That works perfect, right? And I suppose if you were a cave diver and you were deep inside a cave somewhere, you might even use a second bottle of air, and there would be a need for that. So I get that redundant gear or a backup can be important in some scenarios. But I'm going to share with you a very common thing that happens into our shop. You think I'd try to sell somebody extra equipment? I actually talk people out of gear quite often. So I also know that this is going to be very controversial. I'm going to get a lot of comments below that perhaps aren't really good, right? And it's because I talk people out of redundant gear in favor of comfort, training, skill level. Okay, so I'll give you some scenarios. I'll explain what I'm talking about. But I want you to know my heart here, right? My intent is to raise your confidence, raise your comfort level. Peace of mind is valuable, right? And oftentimes peace of mind doesn't come from that extra piece of gear, but can come from your skill level, your training, your education, your experience. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. I know there is that technically brained guy that it's going to say, what's wrong with having an extra blank? Nothing. Nothing really. Although I don't enjoy my dive personally as well when I'm loaded down with all kinds of stuff. I tease people and I say, if I could have gills installed, that's the way I dive, right? I want as little on my body as possible. And I see the guys that show up and they're walking to the dive site and they're kind of wiggling around. They got 100 pounds of gear on their body. I actually had a person, this is what prompted me to do this video. I had a person the other day, said they carry 3 dive knives while they're diving. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. I had to ask him, why 3? Well, I keep one at my ankle because sometimes if you get snagged a certain way and you can't reach your knife, and I keep one on my BC, and I was like, okay, all right. There's nothing wrong with that, I suppose, if you want to carry 3. And maybe I am jaded a little bit. I like to dive free. I like to be lightweight, nimble, float through the water, neutral buoyancy. I don't want to be messing with stuff. I just want to enjoy the fish, the scenery, the photography I love to do, other divers. I want to enjoy the weightlessness, the experience and all that. And I feel like the more stuff I have on me, is extremely cumbersome. Here's the way I kind of equate it. If you looked way back in the 60s, the very first spacesuits that were created, they had to teach those guys, you have to tether your stuff to your body because you can't bend over in that suit and pick something off the surface of the moon because they don't bend that way. So they're walking around, Nowadays you look at the suits and it looks like it's coming off of a sci-fi movie. They're just like bodysuits, okay? So I want to be comfortable, I want to be free, I want to dive that way. And I see a lot of guys that come in and they just want to buy redundant everything. And okay, great. I would love to sell you 2 dive computers. But I'm going to make here I go. Here I go. If you don't trust your first dive computer with your life, why buy it? Okay? Oh, did I just say that they will never fail? No, I didn't say that. But what about your training? So here's the thing. If you have one dive computer and it dies for whatever reason, right? It flooded, battery died, whatever. Are you dead? No, you're not dead. It didn't kill you because your dive computer stopped working. Yes, if you had a second one, you could go, oh, I'm fine. I'll just look at my second dive computer. But to have that second dive computer now, you have to spend the money. They're not cheap. You have to service both of them, keep them going. You have to travel with them, right? And maybe one thing isn't a big deal, but a lot of these mindsets of having all this redundant gear, I've seen people travel with 2 BCs. So let's kind of look a little bit in that scenario with the dive computer. What's the worst case scenario? Okay, my dive computer crapped out. Worst case possible, I'm going to abort the dive and surface. Would I, with my experience? No, I wouldn't. Is that stupid? Well, it depends on the scenario. For regular recreational dive, fairly shallow water, I know what I can do. If I don't have a dive computer, when I learned to dive, it hadn't been invented yet. We used to use a watch. So I can stretch a tank 90 minutes. I've only been in the water for 10. I'm probably safe for at least another 60. And the longer I go into my dive, I'll get shallower and shallower and shallower and shallower, right? I mean, that's just what I would do if something like that happened. I've been trained to dive without a dive computer. So if my dive computer dies, I guess it's not going to freak me out. Why have 2? I'm not carrying 2. I trust the one on my wrist that I use with my life. And if it dies, I'm going to go get another battery. I'm going to surface, or I'm going to finish my dive out in a very safe manner, and I'll just get another battery, or I'll get a different computer, or I'll go rent one if I have to on the trip, or whatever. But I don't need 2. So this isn't really for that technical diver, as I mentioned. I'm going to get the comments from the people that require redundancy. I get that. This isn't for you guys. If I dove a cave, I would have redundancy systems. If I dove 400 feet, I would have redundant systems, okay? And this is for your average recreational diver that's going out having some fun on a trip, and they don't need all the extra kind of things. Thousands of dives. I've never carried a spare mask. Have I needed one? Yep, I have. But instead of buying it and carrying it with me on every dive trip, that one trip that I went to Florida where somebody sat on my mask and broke the lens, I went and bought another one. And while I was on the boat, they had one to loan me. I didn't die. It wasn't a tragic thing. Could I have avoided it if I carried a spare mask? Yeah, I could have. But why? For the thousands of dives that you'll never need the piece of equipment, and that one time you might need that extra dive computer when all you could do is surface and change your batteries. I'm just saying, right? To keep it comfortable, easy, should be simple. Less stuff is less to worry about. Less stuff is less service, is less weight in your baggage. You know, this is a true story. I have a diver that I go with. Sorry if you're watching this, but he shows up on a trip with 4 bags. Inside his bags, hey, you got any batteries? He brings out a AA pack of 20 batteries unopened from the store. You know how heavy that is? I'm like, why do you carry so many? I might need some. Other people might need some. That's a very good reason. But me, if my camera takes 4 batteries, I'm going to bring 4. I'm going to bring a spare 4 or 8 if I'm on a long trip. Okay? I don't know. And I was a Boy Scout, so I try to always be prepared. And it's not like I'm an idiot out there diving without gear that I should have. It's just that I don't need 2 or 3 of everything like that. So if I can save you some money, if that helps you in some way, that's great. That's my goal. And you should be confident in your training. So here's my recommendation for you. I want you to study your gear. If you understand your gear, then you're going to know it. And you're going to know it in a scenario when it's not working properly. Okay? So you know it, you test it, you train it, and you trust it. Right? You test it. I know my dive computer. I know when my batteries are low. I know that at least 3 dives before I'm done, it's going to signal me. So I'm not going to be surprised, okay? I'm going to test it. I'm going to make sure that's true. That's what the owner's manual says. So I'm going to go out there, shallow dives. I'm going to say, oh, it's showing me I need to change my battery. Great. I go up and change it. Yep, that went away. I'm good. I'm going to train with it, right? I'm going to use it. I'm going to know it, all my equipment, right? Then I'm going to trust it. I trust my dive computer with my life. I wouldn't use it if I didn't. I hope this helped you. I hope maybe I saved you some money. I know it's a little controversial ahead of time, but I'm not afraid to go there. Make it a great day. You know, the difference between a new diver and an experienced diver is quite often the tips and the tricks they learn along the way. That's why we share these things with you. We hope that it helped you in some way. And you know, you can help us if you'll just hit that like button down below. And if you can think of anybody else that might benefit from these, why don't you try sharing it? That'll help get the word out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and we'll let you know when the next one comes out. Have an awesome day.